It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Thursday Great Sports Weekend podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton in our San Diego studios, along with my co-host, the venerable, he broadcasts from left field sometimes with his opinions, John Riley. We welcome you to our Thursday podcast as we head towards a great sports weekend. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. If you've got construction projects in the home, at the workplace, out on the back patio by the pool, you need materials, think DIXIELINE Lumber. If you want ideas, they can be your best friend. They can be your consultant. DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley, have we got a ton of things to talk about? Boy, this topic board is loaded. We're going to go a lot of different directions, and we're going to move at warp speed. So get your opinions ready.
Yeah, warp speed. Let's get going.
Hey, a couple of quick reminders on this podcast. If you like what we're doing, we urge you to give us a thumbs up. Give us a 5-star rating on YouTube. That really helps us with what we're posting. If you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we put a lot of unique things up on the channel aside from the Monday and Thursday podcast. When you subscribe, you will get the alerts every time we put something up. You like sports? I invite you to read my website. When we're done with this podcast, just go on the website, leehacksawhamilton.com. You'll find some really interesting things. I write a ton of stories day in, day out. It's their first thing every morning. So we're going a lot of different directions. And by the way, if you're on X, if you're on social media, I want you to follow me on Twitter. Type in my handle at Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button because I put a lot of stuff up on social media. John, let's start with baseball, and then we're going to dive into what's going to be a fascinating weekend in the National Football League. But we're throwing fastballs, curveballs, and free agency.
Yeah, look, some marquee pitchers here on the block.
So here's the burning question for Padre fans, because when we're done, we want you to join us asking questions or making statements in Fans Forum. Here's the question. Who would you rather see them get? Because they're going to try hard to get one of these guys. The left-handed pitcher, Garrett Crochet, the ace of the White Sox staff, is on the trade block. The great right-handed young pitcher from Japan, Roki Sasaki, is about to be posted. He's available as a free agent. So I'm going to give you some opinions, and we want you to jump into the Fans Forum chat box and give us a reaction about the price they're going to have to pay. Let me just run through my notes for you very quickly. Sasaki is going to be posted, we think, within the next 2 weeks. He will count towards the international free agent pool for 2025, which means he could get as much as $7.5 million. It would be a minor league contract. He'd be locked to the team for 6 years. The Dodgers, obviously, because of Ohtani, because of Yamamoto, because of Dodger tradition with Japanese pitchers, seem to have the inside track. The Mets are going to meet with Sasaki when he becomes eligible. They scouted him extensively. The Padres are in the mix because of Yu Darvish, because of the employment of Hideo Nomo as a front office executive. They think they have an inside track. The Red Sox this morning announced they will be a bidder when the window opens, and the Philadelphia Phillies are out there also. They, of course, bring big-time tradition of having won games. So that's the Sasaki situation. Everybody can sign him to the same amount of money. So this will be an organizational choice. It will be a lifestyle culture choice for the Japanese 24-year-old pitcher. As it relates to Garrett Crochet, there are a lot of bidders out there. Some of them are the same. The Dodgers are talking to the White Sox about Crochet, but there's all kinds of different names that are in and out of this situation. Supposedly, Chi Sox want Gavin Stone, even though he's not going to pitch next season coming off shoulder surgery. They want either Andy Pages, the center fielder, or Gavin Lux, the second baseman. They want Diego Cartaya, top young catching prospect who is at Double-A, and they want one of the other starting pitchers. I'm led to believe it's Landon Knack. So the question I'll pose to you, John, first of all, your reaction to Sasaki, and then secondly, in terms of the Padres and what they would have to give up to beat the Dodgers. The Padres' names mentioned in and out are Cronenworth, but they don't want his contract, Campusano the catcher, Jeremiah Estrada, Alex Jacobs, and maybe Matsui. Now that would give the White Sox everyday catcher, maybe. Obviously, 3 young pitchers. Maybe somebody else gets thrown into the deal. So your reaction, first of all, to Sasaki, where he goes, who has the best fit, and then who wins the bidding battle to get Crochet from the Chi Sox?
If you're Sasaki, you got to love this, man. Everyone's just bidding for you. But didn't you say that they could only pay him so much? There's a limit. So everyone's going to be in on it. Everyone's going to probably try to spend the most. So this is going to come down to where he wants to be. But if you're the Padres, I mean, why give up all that talent just to get Crochet, and you're going to end up having to pay him at some point? The Sasaki deal is the best deal of all of the deals. But you know, the Padres are going to be in a spot where it's like, you know, you're at the high school dance, and you're not sure who's going to pick you to go dancing.
So the question with Sasaki, what is the lure? Is the lure the Dodger heritage and all the World Series rings, and the fact that Ohtani is there, and the fact that Yokohama's there, and the fact it's the Los Angeles market? See, I've been told by a baseball agent that Sasaki knows that he gets the base dollar value. All the same teams would pay him the same amount of money. But Sasaki, if he's in Los Angeles, his endorsement value rockets.
Yeah.
Rather than going somewhere else, including San Diego. Now, what's more important, Sasaki and the money, or Sasaki, Ohtani, Yamamoto, or Darvish, Hideo Nomo, past Padre history, AJ Preller, and then I got all these other teams that are out there on the periphery that want to make a sales pitch too about who they are, what they represent. Look what we've won.
And at that level, it's hard to compete with the Dodgers, right? I mean, they got Hollywood there, and they've got everything going for him. The question is if he wants to be a second or a third fiddle. I think if he came to the Padres, would they slot him in the number 1 in the rotation?
No, but he's not the complete major league pitcher yet, but his stuff is 100-mile-an-hour fastball and the other 2 pitches, and his strikeout abilities. I mean, he's right at the door, but he's not the ace of your staff coming in the front door.
That's like Garrett Crochet, same kind of vibe, right?
Yeah. So I have no idea what he's going to do. I tend to think, though, the marketing ability and the volume of dollars he would generate in the LA market is different than he would generate in San Diego or even in Boston or in Philadelphia. Now, what do you do about the Crochet trade? Are you willing to trade and pay some of Cronenworth's contract to make him part of the deal, or are you willing to just trade Campusano? And then what about putting 3 other pitchers in the deal, Estrada, Jacobs, and Matsui?
Well, didn't the White Sox wanted a 4-for-1 last time, if I recall?
And that's 4-for-1 at least.
Yeah, so they're going to be asking for everything. I mean, if you're just being a hardcore, numbers guy, it would be nice to move Cronenworth's contract, but in order to do that, they're going to ask for Salas, they're going to ask for, the kid DeVries. I mean, so they're going to ask for a lot, and they should ask for a lot. The White Sox have a valuable asset. I don't see the Padres making that deal.
Crochet, 3.58 ERA, 209 strikeouts in 146 innings. This is a converted reliever who now's got electric stuff.
Wow.
Now, Padres are not the only one in there. Names mentioned in the Mets deal for Crochet of the White Sox. Left-handed pitcher David Peterson, third baseman Mark Vientos, and a number of minor leaguers. Vientos has turned out to be a pretty good ball player. Names mentioned in the Philly deal. Their third pitcher Christian Sanchez, third baseman Alec Baum. Names mentioned in the Red Sox deal. Garrett Whitmore, pitcher. Brian Bello, pitcher. Young outfielder Win Abreu. I mean, everybody's throwing a serviceable major leaguer and a whole bunch of prospects in each one of these deals.
Yeah, the name that surprised me there was Alec Boehm for the Phillies, because you were saying that the Phillies put him on the trade block. That kid is a good young player.
I think so too.
Yeah, I'm surprised they would want to move him unless they've got another third baseman waiting in the wings.
And I think that's all part of it. Okay, so that's where we are. Who do you want? You're a Padre fan. Jump into Fans Forum. Get in line to give us an opinion. You want Sasaki? Can they get Sasaki? Or would you just make the trade for Crochet? Again, understanding this general manager has traded 15 prospects already this season, so I don't know there's any limit on what A.J. Preller can do. Okay, we go from that. Let's go to the second baseball topic on the table.
Decisions and deals with the Padres and the Angels.
Meetings this week. A.J. Preller wants a payroll upgrade from $169 million to close to $200 million. I don't know if ownership will do that. The burning question is ownership interested in making as much money as they can? And when you have 56 sellouts and you draw $3.3 million, are they interested in taking it and reinvesting it in the team, roster, payroll? Or are they interested in using it to wipe out the debt that Preller rung up over his first 9 years with all the bloated contracts, the wasted money, etc.? Keep an eye on that. The Padres obviously have 7 players they've got to make tough decisions on. I think they keep Arise, Cease, King. I'd like to see them make a bid on Tanner Scott. I would say goodbye to Kim and Profar. I would say goodbye to Higgy. Maybe you bring the utility guys back on economic contracts after we get through the winter baseball meetings. But that's the situation there. Padres, payroll. What's your assessment? Ownership trying to take all this money in the front door to wipe out the debt? Or do you think take the money in to give them a pay bump to keep the team together?
Well, let's talk about debt. I mean, is this like long-term debt, or is this they have a cash flow negative right now, like on a year-to-year basis?
I think it's a cash flow thing based on what they've spent and the depleted TV revenue issue.
Okay, now that's a legit point, is the whole TV revenue thing is blown up. But you got all these contracts, like the big money scales up for Machado and Tatis, and we're not at the peak of that scale up yet, are we? So it's almost like not really debt. It's almost like putting money away on the side so you have it when they need it. Now, in my opinion, the Padres should just keep going all in. As a fan, I can say it because it's not my money, but they had a ton of people at Petco. I mean, this whole thing should work, but I'm not the guy cutting the checks.
Okay, so that's Padre baseball. The other team we're going to talk about, the Angels, they've been the most active team since the end of the World Series in terms of acquisitions, and they just made another one today. They just signed Kevin Newman, former starting shortstop, Pirates, Cincinnati, became a super utility man with Arizona. Newman comes in as the insurance policy because they've lost their shortstop, Zach Neto, for the beginning of the baseball season with torn labrum surgery. Newman's established and he's steady. Spectacular? No. But if dude hits 260 and plays a real decent shortstop, and he has every place he's been, good acquisition. Buys time. So you got Newman. They had already acquired Scott Kingery, an infielder outfielder from the Phillies. The other night, they signed Travis d'Arnaud, 2-year contract. Atlanta Braves catcher, hit 17 home runs last season. That's going to allow them to maybe move Logan O'Hoppe sometimes from catcher to let him DH or catcher to go to first base. And, of course, they made the trade to get Jorge Soler. And the interesting thing, they also got Kyle Hendricks of the Cubs. The interesting thing is the guys they brought from Atlanta all have relationships with Ron Washington.
Nice.
That's kind of fascinating. So as much heat and criticism is being dumped on Artie Moreno, they've been active to get guys on short-term contracts who have proven back of the baseball card reputations in terms of being steady ball players. If Hendricks can be what he was prior to the shoulder issues that hampered him the last year, Hendricks is a rock-solid starter. I like Newman. I just think he's steady as she goes, and he's a proven major leaguer. Obviously, we know what Jorge Soler can do as a designated hitter, and d'Arnaud's become a trustworthy catcher, either your starter, as he was in Atlanta, or rotation guy. So for the first time in a while, we got something positive. Talk about the Halos.
Yeah, it seems like you're kind of making the team competitive, but you don't see that roster beating the Astros or the Rangers.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to have some more young talent, but let's talk about Kevin Newman, because, he went right down the street here. Poway High School, good kid, good family. Went to Arizona, played for U of A Wildcats, was a first-round pick. While he was in college, he played in that Cape Cod League, and that's the top like summer league for college ball players. And he won the batting championship 2 years in a row. So he has the ability to hit, but he hasn't done it consistently at the major league level. Hopefully this change of scenery works for him.
Well, he did well in Pittsburgh. He did well in Cincinnati, found a role for himself and really helped Arizona. So he comes here as the insurance policy because Zach Neto is not going to start the season. And Newman can play multiple positions. And by the way, go on the outfield if he wants to. Nice acquisition. And he's coming home.
Yeah, a nice acquisition. You know, good on you, Artie, for doing that. But that still isn't making me want to go buy season tickets for the Angels.
No, but they're improving the product. And Artie Moreno announced yesterday, because he just did his TV contract and he is staying with Diamond Sports. He's not getting a pay bump, but he's not taking a haircut either. So he thinks this payroll now is going to go up some. So we'll see whether they get real active with, quote, name free agents, but they've rented some veterans who are proven commodity guys. Okay, so Padres-Angels, feel free, jump on board into the fans forum if you have an opinion. Third baseball topic. This thing is constantly changing, that stadium.
Look at that thing. I mean, are they going to play in that stadium?
At 8 o'clock this morning, the owner of the Tampa Bay Rays and Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, announced the Tampa Bay Rays are going to stay in Tampa. They're not going to rotate. One of the proposals was Rob Manfred went to 6 different American League teams and asked them, make your spring training stadiums available so that the Rays can have an 81-game home schedule, even if they play in different locales. They changed their mind. The New York Yankees just announced they will rent their spring training stadium, Legends Field, George Steinbrenner Stadium, to the Tampa Bay Rays. All 81 games will be there, which is real close to where the Rays played at Tropicana Field. Baseball and the Rays are going to pay the Yankees $15 million, so they'll have one home base of operations. The union has signed off on it. The union was dead set against a split schedule that would have had them play in Port Charlotte, some games at Legends Fields in Tampa, some games in Lakeland with the Tigers, some games in Sarasota, the Orioles, and some games with the Phillies up in Clearwater. There was a theory, let them just go play chunks of schedules in each of these spring training stadiums these other clubs operate. But that's too much interference with the Class A teams that are in all those stadiums. But the Rays have found a locale. Major League Baseball convinced the Steinbrenners and the Yankees to let them use Legends Field for all their home games. So that's really a positive. And the reaction? Now, the only problem, they wanted a fixed schedule, a solidified stadium situation, and they wanted control. They don't have control of the weather. Open-aired stadium, outdoor heat, lots of rain in Tampa during the course of the summer. So that's the only negative to where they're going to be. But it's better than going to 5 different minor league stadiums, moving all over the place.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're an employee of the organization, including as a player and their families, that works out nice for them. And it's going to be a rinky-dink stadium. And yeah, I mean, it's just a messy situation. But right now we have 2 franchises. You can add the Oakland A's in that are kind of in a similar boat here. Has it ever been this bad in Major League Baseball history with 2 cities having problems? Well,
they had the Montreal stadium situation went on for years and years, and Montreal then lost the Expos, who became, they played a split season, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and some other cities, and then they eventually wound up going to Washington, where they became the Nationals. But not 2 drawn-out stadium crisis like Major League Baseball's had to deal with, I swear, the last 10 years. And prior to that, Miami was in that mix, in that mess, too, with the Marlins. But this is a semi-solution. The interesting factor was City of St. Petersburg yesterday released a 412-page damage report about Tropicana Field, the aftermath of the hurricane. And as we alluded to weeks ago, $55 million in repairs to replace the transparent roofing. The infrastructure, the supports for the roofing are safe. They were not damaged. The field was destroyed by the hurricane. The video boards, the sound system was destroyed. Offices within Tropicana Field were badly damaged. So the city of St. Petersburg says it'll cost us $55 million to replace the panels and fix the damage. But they haven't decided whether or not to go forward with that. Only because you'd be burning $55 million plus what they've already spent to put in drainage for a stadium that's going to get shut down in 2 years. And they've also told Major League Baseball this will not be done for 2025. Stadium won't be available till 2026. That's why this move to the Yankees ballpark happened so lickety-split.
So they're just going to bulldoze the old stadium?
They haven't decided yet. St. Petersburg has a council meeting November 21st to decide whether they want to pay $55 million to renovate Tropicana Field, even if it's only 2 years. Maybe they use it for other things, or they just tear it down when it comes time to tear it down, and the Rays will be orphans for 3 years.
Well, they can host like motocross races in the stadium. Just a quick comment. You talked about the Montreal situation. I remember as a kid listening to the Giants Expos game on the radio before the 76 Olympics when they had Olympic Stadium.
Yes.
And they played at Jerry Park,
right,
which was this
a minor league ballpark back then.
Yes. And I remember the announcers talking about how if the ball goes over the right field fence, there was like a community swimming pool out there. And so when we were in Montreal a couple of years ago, I wanted to go there and see it, but they changed the park around. The ballpark's not there anymore.
And ballpark Olympic Stadium is being renovated. There had been thoughts, let Tampa Bay go play there. But the Canadian government said, no, it's a construction project. We can't have people coming in and out to see Major League Baseball. Yeah. So it's being renovated. But this solves Tampa. The solution is right there. That, by the way, Legends Field seats 11,000, so they can put fans in there. Rays only average 16,000 fans per game anyhow. So that'll be kind of a fun atmosphere, but you can't control the weather, and the weather is going to be an issue in Tampa. So that's the latest on the Rays. You got an opinion? Feel free to join us. Last topic on the table is really tough to talk about in baseball.
Yeah, Fernando Valenzuela. We got some news on the autopsy.
The autopsy was not very good. He was gravely ill. People sensed this, but they wouldn't talk about it. The autopsy was released yesterday. He died of cirrhosis of the liver, significant alcohol issue. He died of septic shock. His organs shut down. He died of an acute low blood pressure problem, and he also had hepatitis in his system. He was really gravely ill over the last 6 months of his life. And there was also a brain damage issue that was taking place. So he went quickly, although he had been ill for a while. He went very quickly. Just kind of a sad commentary how badly his life ended and how he obviously suffered. But people will remember El Toro and all the great things Fernando stood for, but his lifestyle caught up to him.
It's life, man. I mean, it's life. And when you get older, stuff happens. He is a quality man. We miss him. He's meant a lot to the sport, and he had that magical run. But yeah, I mean, what are you going to say?
His impact on baseball for the Latino community.
Just marvelous.
That goes down in the history record book next to all his great statistics and what he did as a rookie, what he did in that 6-year window with the Dodgers. But his impact on the Latino community and on his home country in Mexico in terms of regenerating the love and birth of baseball, interest in baseball.
Yeah, he's a legit hero, in my opinion.
Very much so. That are topics on the table as it relates to baseball. Feel free to jump on board. Fans Forum chat box is open. We get to halftime, our Thursday podcast, heading towards a great sports weekend. Next, we're going to talk all things National Football League. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. You got projects in the home, whether it's shelving, bookcases, you're going to renovate the bathroom, you want to do something very different in the kitchen, whether it's the family room, John's man cave, maybe it's out on the back patio, you need materials. And if you want ideas, these are the people to take your business to, because we did, and we're satisfied. DIXIELINE Lumber. We go to the second half of our podcast, heading towards a great sports weekend. Just a reminder, when we're done, We invite you to become actively involved in this podcast. We created this window for you to jump through and join us as a co-host here at the table. It's called Fans Forum. John, for all the new people on live stream, just explain how Fans Forum works and how they get involved.
Okay, you can get involved. You have a question or comment for Lee, anything in the world of sports, just drop it in the live chat on YouTube, Facebook, or X. We'll get you involved. We love to see some new people involved. I see some of our old friends like Angel and Mike and David and Callan. We're going to get you all involved, but let's get some new guys in there too.
First-time callers, long-time listeners, this Fans Forum, it belongs to you. Okay, we move to the second half. Are you ready for some football?
Are you ready for some football? Here we go.
Huge weekend, National Football League. It's week 11 of the season. Where has the season gone? But boy, there are some big showdowns. Thursday night football, you got the Philadelphia Eagles, you got the Washington Commanders. You got everything that the Eagles are all about. They're averaging 373 yards per game on offense. Their defense has gotten progressively better. They're giving up just 274 yards per game. Jalen Hurts, 2,300 all-purpose yards at quarterback. Saquon Barkley's got 991 yards rushing. Washington's got the kid quarterback, and we're more than halfway through the season, and they have yet to catch up to Jaden Daniels. He's got over 2,600 all-purpose yards. Get this stat. This is raw rookie quarterback, 13 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions on the season. Philadelphia, Washington, Thursday night football. Next game comes Sunday. Chargers-Bengals. Chargers are really excited. The relationship Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert just looks phenomenal. Team has developed its wide receivers. They're trying to get their running game up and running. Number one defense in the NFL, giving up only 12 points per game in 9 games this season. Go believe that. Now, that being said, here comes Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Burrow has got a 108 quarterback rating, 24 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. His top wide receiver, Jamar Chase, is averaging 15 catches per game. And lost in all the conversation about the Bengals being 4-6 is this fact. They lost by 1 and by 3 to Baltimore, and they lost by 5 to Kansas City.
Wow.
They've been in 3 games. They conceivably could have 7 wins on the season. Now, here's the storyline that I'm pitching. This Charger start is great at 6-3. They have compiled their 6 wins, though, John, against teams with a record of 17-40. The next 5 teams they're going to face, 30-14. So they're going to start playing real people, starting with Joe Burrow. And then from Joe Burrow, they go to Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. And they go to Atlanta and they play Kirk Cousins. And then they got Patrick Mahomes at Arrowhead Stadium. And then they finish up this 5-game stretch with Baker Mayfield. So they're playing real people. So you got Chargers, you got Cincinnati. Baltimore, Pittsburgh. I don't understand Lamar Jackson statistically. I mean, he piles up all these phenomenal. He's only 1-3 against Pittsburgh in his entire career.
Really?
Which is really a shocker. He's 17-4 against everybody else in the AFC North, but he's 1-3 against Pittsburgh. But that being said, I just don't think that Pittsburgh can stay in this game, no matter how good their defense is and whatever turnovers they may generate. Pittsburgh, even with Russell Wilson, with a quarterback rating of 105 since he came back, Pittsburgh doesn't have the guns to hang in there with Lamar Jackson, with Derrick Henry, with the 2 tight ends, and with the 3 wide receivers. So I think Baltimore just keeps on trucking. Kansas City, Buffalo. With apologies in advance to any Kansas City fan out there wearing red. This is the most unimpressive 9-0 team I've ever seen. Patrick Mahomes' statistics are way off the norm of what Mahomes is all about. I mean, he and Kelsey have just kind of made it a tight end offense because of all the injuries. Now they're starting to get some of these guys back, led by DeAndre Hopkins and his arrival, but they've not shown the flash and the explosiveness that they've shown before. Buffalo at home, 29 points per game. Josh Allen has just gone crazy at home, throwing the football all over the field. The defense has got 25 sacks, 19 takeaways. Bills have gotten progressively better defensively through the mid part of the season, and now they're going to get Milano back at linebacker. So Kansas City might fall from the ranks of the unbeaten. And the last game, I mean, it's desperation. You got the Raiders trying to save the coach's job, and you got Miami trying to save their playoff hopes. the Raiders have gone back to Gardner Minshew as starting quarterback for the third time after they benched him this year. He's going to start Sunday. And got Tua Tagovailoa, and his offense just does not look like it has the prior couple of years, even with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Odell Beckham there. Something's not right, and maybe it's Tua's tentative in the pocket. He's afraid of getting hit, and he's trying to get the ball out of there much quicker. But, I mean, this is a really weird game because the rumors are everywhere in Las Vegas Antonio Pierce might be dead man walking, and they're playing to save his job, and they don't have enough skill on offense, and Tua doesn't look right, doesn't look the same. So, John, pick any of those games, pick all. Do you want to comment on the kid quarterback against the Eagles? You want to comment on what the Chargers did against bad teams and what they're going to face next? And we'll talk about those other games too. You have the floor.
I'm looking at that list, and 4 of the 5 games are AFC matchups.
Yeah.
And that's where all the top quarterbacks are. That's where we got the undefeated Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens are rolling. When I look at the NFC, I mean, it's the Lions, are the Eagles going to be competitive to get back to a Super Bowl? It seems like AFC, NFC is very imbalanced.
Yeah, very much so. But who's standing at the end? There's a lot of good teams out there, a lot of good quarterbacks out there. And as you say, yeah, some pretty good people in the AFC street corner, but there is Detroit and there is Philadelphia, and they are exceptional.
Yeah, but then what's on? I mean, the South, what do you got? Maybe Tampa Bay. I mean, they're good, but they're not great. The Niners are having a down year. And so the NFC West is kind of a weaker division. Yep. So it's a mess. But I look at these games, and yeah, there's a lot of great ones on there. It's interesting that you said that Lamar Jackson is 1-3 against Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. Yeah. And it's like you could just see Tomlin's got like a game plan every time just to kind of thwart him.
But this is the best group of people around Lamar Jackson I think he's ever had in the course of his career. Right. It's a really dynamic Baltimore Ravens team. So what do you think of my assessment? Harbaugh, Herbert, compiling his record against teams who are 17-40, and now they play real people starting Sunday.
Yeah, it's a big question, right? We knew there was a lot of injuries in the beginning of the year, and they struggled in some games, but they're coming together now. So the question is, are they good enough to compete at the highest level in the AFC? And I think the jury's out on it. We're going to find out.
Next 5 weeks, for sure. Okay, that's all things NFL football. If you want to jump into the Fans Forum chat box, give us an opinion on a game, team, something I said, something you disagree with what John had to say, because I know you always agree with what I have to say. We go from that, move across the street, Saturday, college football.
San Diego State and UNLV. This is going to be a weird game, I think.
What a role reversal.
Yeah.
I mean, for years and years, the Aztecs were one of the flagship football programs in the Mountain West. And for years and years, UNLV was a bottom feeder. One bowl appearance in 22 years. And now you got a state team that's 3-6, and you got a Rebel team that's 7-2 and has beaten Houston, Kansas, and Oregon State, lost to Boise by 5, and lost at Syracuse by 1. This is a really good, very dangerous UNLV team. And suddenly, the roles of what these programs used to be versus where they are now, just so radically different. And the most unique thing is that Vegas went in and hired a coach from Arkansas, Barry Odom, who brought a bunch of Arkansas players with him, and they've done really well. And they have got themselves a phenomenally active quarterback in Haj Malik Williams. He's a do-everything, action-packed, two-role guy. He can throw it, he can run it. And the Aztecs, they just came through this gauntlet where they played Johnny Mantier from Washington State, who was really dynamic. What we saw last week with New Mexico and what happened in that game that they wound up losing. This is a really dangerous Vegas team. Their wide receivers are averaging 16, 13, and 23 yards per catch. The top running back is averaging 6 yards per carry. And you got an Aztec team that's just reeling because their offense is their wide receivers. The Aztec wide receivers are averaging 9 yards per catch. This was supposed to be down the field, Aztec fast. Mm-hmm. The running backs are averaging just a shade over 4 yards a carry. Their chunk plays have gone away. And I think it's all a byproduct of they've had 10 different starting offensive linemen in 9 games this season. There's been no continuity up front in front of the 18-year-old freshman quarterback, Danny O'Neal, who I think has played really well and I think has played very consistently. And now they're on the other side of the ball, the defense, which is so electric, they look like they're gassed. And they're giving up chunk plays after chunk plays. the last 2 weeks. This is going to be a hard game for the Aztecs. They come back Saturday night 3-7. Huge disappointment in the community.
Yeah, man, this is a tough go, but so there's a lot of people are saying, hey, it's his first year. Sean Lewis, took over a program that had bottomed out. But then other Aztec fans are saying, well, hey, what about the guy at UNLV? What about the head coach of San Jose State? They're first year guys. They've had success. So I don't know. I mean, I like it, but we're rooting for the Aztecs to do well, but I'll just say this. I like it when UNLV is a good program because they're a great rival. And remember during the whole basketball run they had in the 80s and 90s? I mean, that was a fun team to follow. And now Vegas has sort of grown up. It's a big boy city. So I like it that UNLV is competitive. But to your point, yeah, they've flipped roles.
It's very, very strange. We go from that. Let's talk about the teams in Los Angeles.
USC and UCLA.
Well, I'll tell you, Southern Cal, what a rotten week. A, they're 4-5. B, they benched the quarterback, Miller Moss. C, he transfers. D, they're going with a young quarterback who was at Nevada, Las Vegas in Mayava. He can move the pocket. On top of all that, they got them hit with NCAA probation because Lincoln Riley had coaches working with players in spring football who are not supposed to be on the practice field. 11 different coaches violated the NCAA rule. Trojan's been put on probation for 1 year. Riley's not been sanctioned, but the school was fined $40,000. I think it was a paperwork thing because the rules changed. Riley didn't pay attention to the rule change. But on the field, I mean, they got all types of issues right now with moving the football and turnovers. And they sat Miller Moss because he's thrown 9 picks. I think he's got 5 fumbles, and he promptly announced he's transferring. So he's out. So they're going with Jordan Mayava, who's a really competitive freshman quarterback at Vegas and got lured to come. He's going to get the chance to play, see if they can salvage a 4-5 season. Crosstown, UCLA has won 3 in a row.
Hey.
Which is progress. Now, they haven't beaten really good teams in the Big Ten, but they've won 3 in a row. So we'll just have to see what the Bruins do going forward. They kind of put the lid on the turnovers. Their quarterback, Ethan Garbers, went through a really bad spell. He was throwing so many picks. And, I thought they're going to sit him down. They had no running game. Last 2 games, they started to power the football a little bit. So we'll see if the Bruins, if they've found their run game and if they've solved the turnover situation with the quarterbacks. But hey, 3 wins in a row compared to where they were at 1-4. That's real progress.
Yeah, good on UCLA and Deshaun Foster and Eric Bieniemy. They're getting the thing going. I like that. USC, man, it seems like it's so disappointing. You get Lincoln Riley here, big money. By the way, no relation. But the thing that you got me in that story is that if a player is, working out on his own time in the spring and happens to work with a coach, on some drills, and it's all voluntary, that's a foul. That violates an NCAA rule. Well, that's a BS rule.
End of the day, it is a rule. The rest of the world has to accede to the rule as it was.
Yeah.
But he had 11 different administrative assistants who were working with players in spring football on the field when they should not have been on the field in the teaching thing. You've already got a full assistant coaching staff, and these guys were doing extra stuff. Again, I think it's a minor violation. So they tagged him.
It's a bad look on the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a bad look. But Riley cooperated, said, we made a mistake. Riley never got penalized. They're just in turmoil. USC is just not USC football. Not at all.
They should be dominating football on the West Coast.
How'd they move the Pac-10 to the Big Ten work?
Yeah,
not very well. Okay, we go from that to another story in football, the passing of 2 icons.
Yeah, talking about USC, we got John Robinson.
Tell you what, one of the nicest guys I ever met as a head coach. Was not a control freak, was a personality. He could recruit the daylights out of players. He ran a system that players really embraced. John Robinson passes away at the age of 89. His record at Southern Cal when he replaced John McKay, his record with the Trojans was 104-35. He won 2 national titles, 4 Rose Bowls. He created Student Body Right.
Oh, yeah.
Tailback U. I mean, he was phenomenal. And then he went to the LA Rams, and he duplicated success with the Rams, 79 and 74. Now, he didn't have player personnel control of the Rams. A lot of people of the opinion, had John Robinson had that, to his portfolio, they might have been a Super Bowl team. But you close your eyes and you think Trojan football, and what flashes before your eyes? Marcus Allen, Charles White, Anthony Davis, Ricky Bell, student body right.
Yeah.
And he went to the Rams, and who did they get? Eric Dickerson.
Guy.
So he did a hell of a job. And I think he's one of the nicest football guys I've ever crossed paths with. The other guy who passed was Jerry Faust, head coach, Notre Dame. Job he always wanted. He was a high school coach at Cincinnati Moeller. He was phenomenal at taking a small Catholic school program and building it into a national power. Jerry Faust was 30-21-1 at Notre Dame. The jump to Division I football was really, really hard. And they finally let him go. But at Cincinnati Moeller, he was 174-17. How unbelievable was that?
Wow.
So Jerry Faust has passed away at the age of 89. After he left Notre Dame, he went into consulting. Then he went to the University of Akron, tried to fix that program, and then left, and then he retired. But he was pretty good. But boy, the pressure points for him to go to South Bend to replace Dan Devine, who had replaced Eric Parsegian, he just never was able to get it over the hump around the corner and make it successful. So we lost two really different coaches. I loved dealing with Robinson, and I interviewed Faust once. He was a nice man, but he was above his level when he tried to go to Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's what they say. You rise to your highest level of incompetence. But good on you. Jerry Faust has a great history. But the question I have for you is, I'm going back to the movie Rudy.
Yeah.
And I remember where one of the coaches got fired and another one was hired. And I knew one of them was Dan Devine. Was Faust the other? Or is it the guy before Dan Devine?
The guy before Dan Devine, because the players went to Dan Devine and said, we want this walk-on. And Dan said, he can't play. And they said, we want this walk-on. And the players came in and put their jerseys on the desk and said, if you don't take this guy as a walk-on, some of us will not be here.
So they did that on the new coach.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Jerry Faust was after that, but John Robinson, yeah, legit dude. I remember when I think of Charles White and I think of Marcus Allen
and Anthony Davis and Ricky Bell. And
oh yeah, they were just loaded back in that day. And whatever happened to those glory days of USC football?
What an assembly line they had. So you got memories of the coach, JR. I thought he was just a great man. We go from that. Let's talk hoops.
The San Antonio Spurs. I didn't like this news.
Yeah, this was concerning because he took himself off the bench. Greg Popovich suffered a stroke 2 weeks ago at the practice facility. He's had high blood pressure problems. He has gone indefinitely as coach. They've gotten it under control. They say he will make a full recovery, and he'll be back to coach sometime during the course of the season. But Popovich, obviously, age 75, he's got health issues, stressful job, very unique individual intellectually, but he's off the bench. But they got it early, and there was not severe damage. But he had a stroke in the facility just before he's going on the floor with his players. That's pretty scary stuff. NBA is fooling around with a different idea. Right now, we're in the middle of the NBA Cup. This series of games in November, and they give the top team that wins the round robin, each player gets a $514,000 bonus. I don't know how important that is, but the NBA is thinking of changing the All-Star game. Historically, it's always been East versus West.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're thinking of making it Team USA versus the world. Wouldn't that be cool, considering the great foreign legion of players that have come to pro basketball to have their team together, Luka Doncic and friends, versus LeBron James and company for Team USA. What do you think about that idea?
Well, first of all, haven't they already done that in the past? I thought they did. Or was that in hockey when they did that?
That's in hockey.
Okay, but they keep trying to tweak this. Remember one time there was like a pickup game and they had captains picking teams and stuff? I don't think any of this matters. The only thing I like about the All-Star game is the slam dunk contest and the three-point shot.
You're always big on French pastry and wine.
Yeah, those are the fun parts of it. It's like the home run derby is best for the All-Star weekend in baseball. Greg Popovich, first of all, he looks like Donald Sutherland, doesn't he? I always thought that. And I remember he was with the Warriors for a little while before he went to the Spurs. I like Popovich, and Popovich, besides everything he's done on the coaching, has been terrific. But he is an outspoken intellectual guy.
He's really offbeat.
He is offbeat, and he'll make comments beyond the scope of sports.
Oh, you think about what's going on in the White House and goodness.
And then cultural issues and everything. And I don't always agree with him, but I appreciate that he stands up and says what's on his mind. And I think that Steve Kerr is kind of doing the same thing.
Yep, very much so. They are more than just basketball in their lives. I think that's the point you're trying to get to.
Yeah,
we'll wait and see when Pop comes back, but the fact that they caught this stroke issue early, hugely important. Let's go from pro basketball to hoops in town.
The Zags are coming to Viejas Arena.
Monday night. Wow. San Diego State hosts Gonzaga. This is a matchup of the two elite teams on the West Coast. Gonzaga with the national brand, San Diego State obviously having been to the NCAA tournament 13 times under Brian Dutcher, and obviously Final Four, championship game, etc. But the Zags are really good. Gonzaga comes in averaging 95 points per game. They're 2-0. The Aztecs are 2-0, but they haven't played the same level of competition. They have got so much firepower on this Gonzaga team, led by Braden Huff, who's a sophomore, big 6'10" kid averaging 17 points per game. Graham Ike, a 6'9" forward who's a transfer from Wyoming, elected to stay at Gonzaga and not try to go to the NBA. He's averaging 12 points per game. They got a 6'7" power forward, Micah Zai, is averaging 12 points per game. I mean, there's a lot of firepower, a lot of beef, a lot of toughness. The Aztecs, unfortunately, may have to go without Miles Bird. This ankle sprain is more significant. He remains in a boot. He remains on crutches. He's not going to practice at all this week. I just don't see how you can put him out on the floor to try to play. And, of course, they already don't have Reese Waters. The thing that saves San Diego State, this might be the best collection of three-point shooters Brian Dutcher's ever had.
Oh, yeah.
This whole group, obviously led by B.J. Davis, and then Nick Boyd, the transfer, McKinney from USD. They had 18 threes the other night. Of course, they beat a Division III team, Occidental. My real concern about San Diego State, their bigs are not doing anything that bigs need to do in terms of rebounding. They're not getting anything out of Magoon Guath, the 7-foot center. Defensively, he's blocked a few shots. He's hit an odd basket or two. And the other big center, the transfer from Middle Tennessee State, his contributions physically, rebound either end of the floor, negligible. So I know there's an awful lot of excitement that the Aztecs have got all these guys who can stroke it, but you got to have some bigs because, once they get into the conference, they're playing a lot of rugged people. So this might be their downfall. I mean, Zags come in averaging 95 per game. I hope San Diego State doesn't get mopped up on the floor because I think Gonzaga could do that to them.
Yeah, but you got to, first of all, you got to give it up to Mark Few for agreeing to do the one home, one away with the Aztecs. Yep. This is a dangerous game for the Zags. It's a bad timing for the Aztecs without Reese Waters and potentially Miles Bird. And the bigs for the Aztecs are Magoon Guath and Pharaoh Compton, these rookies, freshmen. My expectations are in check. I'm hopeful. I mean, the Aztecs beat them in Spokane last year.
But that was with a cadre of real veteran players.
Yeah.
NCAA tournament type players.
So this is a chance for the Aztecs to sort of prove who they are. Let's see what this roster can do. But it's going to require getting a lot of ducks in a row for the Aztecs to win.
It's going to require a bunch of guys hitting threes.
No doubt.
I think that's where their offense has to come from, at least the first third of the season. So you're an Aztec fan, college basketball fan. This is a marquee matchup. This will be fun at Viejas. Final topic on the table before we go to Fans Forum belongs to people who play with only one name on their jersey and corner kick balls.
Like hacksaw on the back of the jersey?
Soccer. Hey, big night in soccer tonight. Team USA makes its official debut with their new coach, Mario Pochettino. They play Jamaica. First game qualifying Nations League soccer. They're playing there in Kingston, Jamaica. So we'll see what Pochettino's system looks like. However, they play Jamaica tonight without a bunch of guys who are hurt, and this is a big blow. They don't have Gio Reynas. They don't have Fo Balogun. They don't have Tyler Adams. That's all part of the collection of goal scorers. They're all out with a different series of injuries. They do have Christian Pulisic. They do have Ricardo Pepe. They do have Weston McKennie, but they're going to be shy of Gunners to go play the Reggae Boys. But we'll get a look at what Pochettino has put together, because everybody was excited when he got hired based on his track record. The other soccer story involves the Three Lions. That's the symbol representing English soccer. They play tonight in their First Nation League's qualifying game, and there is so much unrest in London right now. Harry Kane, the legendary English goal-scoring star from the Premier League, he's come back and he's playing for Team England. 8 players on that roster elected to opt out and not play in the first round of the Nations League. And Harry Kane just went ballistic, saying, country comes first before your club. These guys, these other 8 players have elected to stay with their teams on the English Premier League in Italy, France, Spain, wherever they are, and not come play for the English side. Harry Kane was beside himself. So they're probably getting knocked out in the first round. He just doesn't understand how these guys would not want to play for God, King, and country.
Well, it's you go where the money is. I mean, they got a big contract. They don't want to risk getting hurt. In fact, I'll bet you some of those American players, if this was the World Cup or if this was like, for a championship with their club team, I bet you some of those guys would be playing.
But some of these guys got hurt playing for their clubs.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, the top soccer players are playing almost year round.
Yes, it's a big issue.
So this will be fun. You call them the Reggae Boys. They're going to Jamaica, man. It's going to be fun. And I imagine the crowd is going to be just unruly.
So you like Puerto Rican rum?
Oh, absolutely. Pour me some spiced rum and Coke. I love that.
Soccer, tune it in. 5 o'clock on the West Coast on Thursday night, the debut of the new coaching staff, new system, but not a complete roster for Team USA. It's time for you to join us. We're going to Fans Forum. We're going to try to move through a bunch of topics on the table. Feel free to jump on board into the chat box right now. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego, and the new one that just opened up at Dana Point in Orange County. You got projects, they've got materials. You want ideas, you need to deal with them. DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley is out in left field with his opinions. We'll see if the people right now in the chat box have opinions that match mine, or if they're out in left field too. John, your call.
Some of these guys got questions for you, Saw. So here we go. From Greg. He goes, Lee, what players seem to be the leaders on that Chargers Super Bowl team in your broadcast days? My guess is Junior was one of them.
Junior was one of the emotional leaders, flag carrier. He was not a complete football player. He played on instinct. He kind of violated the game plan sometimes by freelancing, but he kept making plays, so they never reeled him in. It's interesting you bring that up because this is the 30th anniversary of the Chargers' run to the Super Bowl. This will be the 30th anniversary. The team at San Diego, sadly, is kind of forgotten. That being said, there's all types of leaders. Your quarterback, Stan Humphries, was a playmaker down the field, had just unbelievable guts to stand in the pocket and make plays. One of the players that I thought was a real flag carrier for them, and it's not a sexy position, the right tackle, Stan Brock. Monster of a man, 6'7", 310, and just a firebrand of a leader. He had come from the New Orleans Saints, had never been in a playoff game. And that one given season, he was the leader of the Chargers. So I would say Seau, the athlete, Humphries, the trigger man, and Stan Brock picking up the flag, gentlemen, follow me. I think those are the 3 real leaders of that one great year we had with the Chargers when they got to the Super Bowl.
Now, I'm going back in my mind. I remember John Carney being a character guy, Yep. I mean, it's a kicker, but he was a quality dude. And then wasn't there a guy that used to play for the Chiefs that came over to the Chargers who was kind of a big-time leadership guy? Or is that like in a different era? Maybe I'm getting confused.
It might be. I don't recall that. I'm remembering the big games that the Chargers had to win, and those are the guys that got them wins.
Stan Humphries, man. I mean, that was a dude. That was a great pickup by Beathard.
Yeah, he lived here in Poway too during the course of time here. He was a beer-drinking, riverboat gambler type quarterback, and he could throw the ball deep, and he was accurate deep, and he stood in there, and he'd take some shots, and he'd just get right back up, with the exception of the time he took a shot in Cincinnati and never got up and never played again because of a concussion. But, Greg, those are my names just off the top of my head. Thanks for joining us. Next one.
Okay, let's go to Callan. And here we go. Lee, what do you make about the CHL NCAA ruling? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this matter at hand in hockey world.
Well, this guy is part of the old Canada network that joins us. A lot of people have not paid much attention to the story. College hockey had a rule in place. They would not take any player that was playing junior hockey in Canada because they were considered professionals. When you're a junior hockey player in the Ontario Hockey League, the Quebec League, or the Western Hockey League, you're paid a per diem stipend to live, pay your rent, food, etc. NCAA, stoic amateurism, we're not taking those guys because those guys turn pro. Well, with everything changing with the NIL, etc., a junior hockey player from Ontario filed a class action suit against the NCAA. And the NCAA just voted last Thursday, we will admit junior hockey players who can come to play at the NCAA level if they get admitted into school academically.
Yeah.
And even though they had stipends, cost of living stipends to play for the London Knights or, Portland Winterhawks, whatever, those kids are now eligible to come play NCAA hockey effective next season. I think it's great for the kids because it gives them additional venues. I think it's devastating for junior hockey. If these kids want to come here and play in a much more structured system, it's going to hurt all the junior hockey teams. Now, granted, all those kids can't come across the border and all get admitted into colleges. I think it'll be great for college hockey. There'll be a different breed of young hockey player that they'll have on their roster. The only asterisk to that, if you have a draft pick, a high draft pick who signs a pro contract and has been sent back to junior at age 19 to play one more year, he's not eligible to come play at Boston University or Boston College because he's got a mega NHL contract. But the other kids, all the 17 and 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, they can apply for admission. So it's going to change American college hockey. I hope it's not the death knell to the Canadian hockey leagues, those 3 junior leagues, because that's historically been the developmental ground of young draft picks. So that's a kind of a long form answer for what has just happened, but it's being talked about. It's going to change college hockey here in the States, which would be good for college hockey.
Yeah, and it's good for the kid that's going to college, know? And I think it's good that they're relaxing this rule because they'd be hypocrites to take the NIL money, but then deny these guys that got a stipend. That's why the class action suit was filed and why the NCAA backed away so quickly. Good question. Thanks, Callum. Okay, let's go here to Mike. He goes, Hacksaw, listen to you in LA. Sasaki would get multi-million-dollar endorsement deals from Japanese brands such as Toyota or Sony as soon as he signs in Los Angeles. Well, if you go pull up a picture on the internet of Dodger Stadium, and what do you see? You see billboards everywhere of Japanese companies. They signed, I was told it was between 12 and 15 corporate advertisers jumped on board to become corporate sponsors of the Dodgers once Ohtani signed. Airlines, automobiles, electronics, men's clothing, athletics. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I mean, Ohtani's getting a volume of money. He's always gotten a volume, even when he was with the Angels. And I would think Sasaki's marketability pitching at Dodger Stadium, that's a national brand now in Japan because of Ohtani and what they had done prior with all the other great Japanese pitchers and Korean pitchers and Taiwanese pitchers that the Dodgers have had this relationship with. So, yeah, I think Sasaki's ability to market himself would be much better in the number 2 market in the country than, say, in San Diego or in Boston on the other side of the country. So my gut feel is it's a lock for him to be a Dodger. Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say a lock, but it makes the most sense. Now, first of all, this is interesting because when Japanese companies are doing heavy marketing, a lot of it is to attract the TV audience in Japan. So when they got 12, 15 million watching the World Series, I would imagine those Japanese broadcast companies are paying MLB for the rights to license that. So that also kind of part of that finds its way into the coffers of the Dodgers and maybe even the other teams in the league. Oh, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal the amount of money that has been triggered just by Ohtani's arrival at Dodger Stadium. Just absolutely amazing. So we'll see. We don't know when Sasaki's going to get posted. There's a 45-day window once he gets posted for him to make the decision where he wants to go. The feeling is, everybody has spent
pretty much all their international money already for 2024. The feeling is he'll get posted right after the new year because that will be 2025 money, and he could then get 7.5 million of somebody's international pool rather than whatever's left from the 2.5 million they had this year, because the international pool changes year by year. So I think it'll happen in January, but I do think it'll happen pretty quickly the minute he gets posted.
Could a team choose to roll over their international pool leftover money into the next year?
Yeah, they could, or they could withdraw some of that money that may have been offered to some kid that was 16. They've elected not to go forward with them. But it'll be fascinating to see. I think he'll be wearing Dodger blue.
The rich get richer. Okay, let's go here to Chris. And he says, LeBron has an all-time great performance last night, and the kid's stud first-round draft pick was perfect from the three-point line, and the Lakers eked out a win at home against the Grizzlies without Ja Morant. This team is stuck in mediocrity again, and my source is saying they're looking to trade D'Lo for a bag of basketballs. Reaction?
Well, D'Angelo Russell's just been very erratic. But again, they painted themselves into the corner because they gave him a 3-year contract with options for him. And after he had a crummy postseason, he opted to stay and get his $18 million. But his game is so hot and cold, you just never know what you're going to get. They didn't play a lick of defense inside. I mean, LeBron was phenomenal. What did he score? 35 last night. He just powered his way. Now, I was stunned because they were blowing Memphis out early. Memphis did not have 2 of its top 3 guards. Memphis is kind of playing with one hand behind their back because they're so short because of injuries. Lakers are not a complete team. At the end of the day, it sure looks like AD and LeBron have to carry the Lakers. Dalton Connect had a good game, but he's also had a pile of bad games along the way, so he hasn't found himself. Hachimura is some nights hot, some nights cold, so there's no consistency. This just looks like it's the same old, same old, same old.
Yeah, it kind of is. It is the same old. But I'm talking about the Grizzlies. I was watching part of that game, and it was interesting to see Zach Edey out there on the court.
Sure.
And he still is he towers over Anthony Davis. But was the other kid, was it Pippen? Was that Scottie Pippen's kid?
Used to be with the Lakers, but has finally gotten a chance to get a lot of minutes because of all the injuries to the backcourt. At one point, Memphis last week had all 3 of their top guards out, and they're still out. Desmond Bane is out. Marcus Smart is back, but he's not totally healthy. Morant is gone with a hip. So Scottie Pippen Jr., a couple nights ago, I think he might have scored 21. He's just starting to really find himself as a player, but he used to be with the Lakers, but he never showed very much there.
That's a better pickup, I think, than Bronny James.
Bronny 2 for 9 in his first NBA G League game. And now they just announced he's only going to play home games. He's not going to travel.
Really?
On the road, yeah. He's just going to practice with the Lakers and play only home games with South Bay Lakers. So this whole thing it's screwy the way they're handling it. Because I don't know how does he improve if he's not playing every night in the G League? That's what I thought was the whole premise of him being there in the system, in the rotation, working under Laker assistant coaches. And now you're going to have him play home games, and he's not going to practice with those guys.
Well, all that matters is you keep LeBron happy. I think that's what this is all about, isn't it?
Nepotism.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Next question. Thanks for the comment, Chris.
Okay, let's go here to Angel. He goes, what are the off chance that the Angels signed a big name free agent, either Crochet or Rizzo the Rat?
Well, you could get Anthony Rizzo probably at an affordable price, but do you really need him? And again, he's had a lot of injuries. I mean, when you're batting in the 180s now at his age and you keep getting dinged, I don't know that there's a ton of value there unless it's a leadership thing. But I'll give them credit because we sure have critiqued their operation, and rightfully so. But let's be realistic here. I mean, what they've done by trading for Soler as maybe a designated hitter and then going to get Travis d'Arnaud and then getting Kyle Hendricks and now getting Newman, they're renting established major league players. All-star, no, but established guys that you can trust. I still think they've got budget space to go into the marketplace and try to find a marquee guy. Thing is, who's the marquee guy and who's going to commit to come and what surely looks like a rebuild season for them. So only time will tell as we go towards the winter baseball meetings whether there's a big acquisition coming. But these are everyday guys that you can trust in your everyday lineup.
Yeah, well, it's like Padres, got Donovan Solano
Sure.
and David Peralta. It's those kind of guys. But now just pretend for a minute that Artie Moreno is willing to spend the money and he's got unlimited money. And let's say Juan Soto is not a consideration. What are the next 2 or 3 free agents?
I just don't think that any of those guys are coming his way, because I don't think Artie Moreno wants to lasso himself, tie himself down to a $500 million contract. He's been so burned by those acquisitions. But there's the second tier and third tier of free agents who are established major leaguers. They need a veteran pitcher. Charlie Morton is available. That guy's got 121 wins over the course of his career. Granted, he's 40 years of age, but he's trustworthy. You know, you rent 1 or 2 of these guys, you add them to the staff they already have, and you hope for good luck with health, and then maybe you're a competitive baseball team. But everything's, I mean, there's so much flux going on. Seattle has underachieved despite all the money they've paid. Houston, they lose Alex Bregman. They're not the same team. And Houston's got all kinds of injury issues with the pitching staff. So the West could be kind of open. Texas is coming through just a myriad of injury. Their pitching staff was destroyed by injuries, and they don't know who they're going to get back. So the whole thing in the American League West is kind of wide open for business. But I think there's players out there you can go get, you know, but Artie's not going to pay $500 million to a Soto type superstar free agent.
Blake Snell, man, bring him in on a 3-year deal.
But asking price is 5 years.
Yeah, we got to work it out, man. Otherwise, maybe bring in Bregman. I mean, that'd be a nice upgrade. Get Rondon off of third base.
Again, not cheap.
Right.
How deep is Artie Moreno going to dive to go get more players? There's a lot. I said like 156 veteran free agents are out there on the street right now. So I think they can find some guys. They need health more than anything else. They need, you know, losing Zach Nito's a blow. You know, obviously Rendon's got to get this cloud away from his head. He's had so many injuries. Same thing with Mike Trout. They potentially could have a pretty good batting order with all the kids that they've gotten. But if the stars can't stay on the field, you're a last place team again. Angel, thanks for joining us. Next question.
Okay, let's go here to JR. Talk about Fernando. He says, Fernando went out like my mom. She battled for a few years, but when it went bad, there was no way to reverse it, and she went fast. As soon as I saw him one time, he looked like my mom, and I knew.
Well, you know, the rumor was that he was dying of cancer. And when the last picture I saw of him on TV, he looked really bad. But when the autopsy came out, and obviously this is all a lifestyle-driven death, sadly, you know, and the minute they brought out cirrhosis of the liver, that's an alcohol-fueled disease. And then hepatitis is a byproduct of alcoholism. And then there was some type of brain malfunction. I mean, he had a lot of physical things that he lived through and finally caught up to him at a fairly young age at 63. But he lived the way he lived. And I'll tell you, we remember him for what his impact was with the Dodgers and what his impact was for Major League Baseball with the Latino community. That to me is the most fascinating thing, his impact on the game there.
Yeah, I mean, you think about certain players in Major League Baseball history that were magical, you know, and he was one of them. And he wasn't just a one-year wonder like Mark the Bird Fidrich.
It was 6 years.
It was, yeah, he had that great run. And so, you know, as a Giants fan back in the day, it was crushing to have him killing us every time. But boy, was he legit. And one of my buddies here works down here at the Post-Atlantics, Dennis. He was saying he went to that game where his debut, it was supposed to be Jerry Royce. And then he was hurt game day. And then Lasorda said, hey, okay, you kid, you're getting the opening day start. And then it all took off.
You know, 8 wins in a row as a rookie and pitching. And then he got him into the World Series, and he won a game in the World Series, which flipped the Fall Classic. I mean, and then, you know, then it became Fernando Mania. Then it became an event. Then it became huge for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for the sport.
That's what we remember El Toro for. Next question.
Okay, let's go here to Emmanuel. Have you heard about the updated TV deals that Diamond Valley Sports have cut with the teams?
Diamond came out of bankruptcy this morning. At 10 a.m., the bankruptcy judge approved everything that Diamond Sports had proposed. 4 more clubs redid their contracts to stay with Diamond Sports, including the Atlanta Braves, which was the real marquee one. So Diamond Sports, I believe, as of this hour, now has the rights to 6 major league teams and 21 other NBA and NHL teams. From what I gather, they propose not only would they carry Major League Baseball on the Diamond Sports channels, but they would then provide the ability for the consumer to subscribe to streaming of games with no blackouts. So the streaming thing is what put it over the top. In addition, they've worked a financial deal with Amazon Prime to become one of their stockholders, and FanDuel, which was the first one to jump in. So suddenly Diamond Sports is now a, quote, player. Major League Baseball at 11 a.m. after the court ruling at 10 dropped its litigation against Diamond. Now, we don't know what the dollar value is. Did Atlanta take a big pay cut to stay? Or are they betting on the come that will stay with them because a streaming thing could be really huge? But it hurts Major League Baseball, which wanted to take everybody in-house and have their own streaming thing. So at the end of the day, are the Padres better off where they were as the first one into Major League Baseball streaming service? Or will Atlanta and Arizona and all these others who just re-upped with Diamond, are they going to come out better financially? We don't know. The whole streaming thing could be 2 years down the road, 4 years down the road. But baseball solved the bankruptcy at 10 o'clock this morning when the judge said, I approve of what Diamond just did in terms of its restructure.
Interesting. I like the fact that they're coming out of bankruptcy and taking an innovative approach,
yes,
especially with the business model and getting FanDuel involved. And I know that's kind of has its downside, its dark side, but I think that's the way to make it work, because they were paying rights fees that were astronomical, and they weren't able to get the advertising to pay for the bill.
Yeah. Well, Angels jumped in, even though the Angels took a bit of a haircut. The Angels were supposed to get $120 million. I'm led to believe the Angels might have worked a deal to get 90. But the Angels also get the streaming clause in there for the future, which could be volumes of money.
Yeah, anytime, anywhere. You get on every
single
device.
Game purchases by John Riley and Poway at his castle.
Yeah.
So they're betting on the come for what the future will be. I think the good thing for the fans, you'll now be able to find your team's games somewhere. I'm not quite sure where and how you get it. So be it. Let's do one more here.
Okay, let's get an NFL question. This is from Flegel. He goes, back to the NFL. Is it possible the Chiefs' problem is too much politics?
No, not at all. Problem is too many injuries. I mean, you lose your 3 top wide receivers. You lose your top running back. That's huge. Now, the unsung heroes right now in Kansas City's 9-0 run, because I apologized in advance. I thought I said at the top of the show, it's the most unimpressive 9-0 team I've ever seen, because Mahomes is not what Mahomes was. But the big story is what's going on defensively under Spagnuolo. They have gotten better and better and better. I think they're giving up, I want to say in the last 5 wins, 256 yards per game in the NFL. So, and the Chiefs' defense has progressively gotten better and better. But I don't think they get out of Western New York unbeaten by Sunday night. I think they're going to get beat by the Bills.
Yeah, it's not politics. I mean, what was that guy that got busted for wearing the MAGA hat? Was that Niners or was that the Chiefs?
That was the Niners.
It was the Niners.
Nick Bosa.
That was Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
And then, and yeah, there was a little bit of the Taylor Swift thing. There was a political angle there, but the thing that I would think about with the Chiefs that makes them different and a lot of other teams is that all of their guys are like spokesmen for State Farm Insurance, and you even got like Andy Reid there doing the Fumblerooski and all these other ads, and Travis Kelce, and of course, Patrick Mahomes.
Let me correct you. The only thing that makes Kansas City different than anybody else is Andy Reid's brilliance.
Oh, you love him.
Oh, I love to watch him because I see formations I never ever saw before. And that's Sunday by Sunday. I watch a lot of Chiefs games. And I said, I've never seen this alignment. And look what they're doing with motion. And I watch games differently than you do. But
you chart the game.
Yeah, I chart all kinds of stuff. But he's one of the really bleeping brilliant guys in X's and O's in formation. They get to the playoffs, and they show you stuff that we haven't seen all year. I mean, that's how bright a light.
Well, that's what did in the 49ers, right?
And that's where you got a quarterback who can execute it too, in Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, he's legit. I remember the one play where they did the ring around the Rosie. Yep. I mean, I like seeing that. It's kind of
formation,
fun.
Yeah. And then that's a byproduct of Bieniemy's creative juice too.
Right on.
So that was cool. Okay, let's do a couple social media here before we put a lid on this.
Okay, we put a lid on this here. Let's get a social media. This is a good Padres comment. This is from Jay Lynch. He says, if you want 3.5 million attendance, better sign Tanner Scott, trade Suarez, and bring up Salas and the kid shortstop. That will save payroll.
Well, the kid shortstop DeVries and Salas are not ready to be major leaguers. Salas hit 206 in Double-A. So that's 206 in AA. Now, he's really young. He's 18 now, and DeVries is 18. Give them another year plus in the minor leagues, and maybe we'll see if they're major league ready. I do agree with you, though. If I could find a way to afford Tanner Scott, but somebody will have to vacate. If I'm giving Tanner Scott $8 to $10 million over the next couple of years to be my setup guy or maybe even my closer, somebody's going to have to depart. I'm not ready to trade Robert Suarez right now because I think Suarez and Tanner Scott and then the lead-in guys, that makes you so vibrant in the bullpen. So I would not hit the eject button on one bullpen guy to keep the other guy. I try to keep them both, but somebody has to vacate. And those guys are probably Hassan Kim and Jurickson Profar and maybe Higashioka. So some guys, they're going to have to leave. They're going to have to lose somebody along the way.
But you're going to need to have a collection of guys that are making less than $1 million a year. Whether they're rookies or second or third year players. And
but there's experience. Look what they did with Solano and David Peralta. Maybe they bring those guys back for just a smaller pay bump. There will be a whole chunk of those guys that'll be unemployed February 1st. Then that's where they went and got those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to get the right guys.
Well, it would be fun if Salas or DeVries came up to the major leagues and just started raking. It would be an innovative AJ Preller scheme too.
John, they're 18 years of age. It's a big distance between.
Wasn't Tatis 19 when he came up?
He was unique.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But they're not ready. I don't think either one of those kids are ready. But that's the future, and we'll see where it goes. How about one more here before we put a lid on it?
Before we put a lid on it, let's talk a little bit about the NHL. And this is about our concussion topic. He goes, Bozer isn't the captain of the Canucks. It's Quinn Hughes. But other than that, good stuff.
Well, I feel really badly for Bozer because he's out, and he got clobbered in an open ice hit by an LA Kings player. He's in concussion protocol. I grew up in hockey. I came from hockey. I understand the fastness. I understand the toughness of hockey. I don't understand the open ice hits and the attempt to injure, and that stuff is still going on. I still don't understand the brutality of some of the fights that are happening, most notably during the course of the playoffs. So I wish the league could get a better handle and more consistency in the officiating. I was aghast at the hit that the Canucks player took. And this is their star goal scorer, and now he's out. Who knows when he comes back from a concussion? And there's no need for open ice hits to the head, shoulders to the head, elbows to the head. There's no need for knee-on-knee checks, and that stuff has happened. And I just don't understand the league not being tougher on these guys to say that is not going to be tolerated in the game. And if you do it, we're going to take you out of the game, because that'll make guys stop. They lose their payday. If they get a 25-game suspension, that'll make guys stop doing some of the dirty stuff, because that is dirty hockey right now. The game is phenomenal. It's so fast. It's so quick. It's so skilled. But we don't need open ice hits on the Vancouver player that we had.
Now, let's pretend for a minute that the NHL talked to Roger Goodell and got kind of their breakdown and implemented the NFL model in the NHL for late hits and shots to the head. Would that solve the problem?
Well, they've tried to clean it up. They don't allow you to hit guys from behind, propelling them head first into the boards. But it still happens. And you can say, well, that's by accident. I'm going to hit the guy moved, he got clipped, he went head first in the boards. That happens occasionally, but there's just got to be better policing to stop all the stuff with the blows to the head, because we're talking about bigger, faster, more physical guys now than we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, back in the day times. So the collision points, the power of the hits is so much more dangerous to these players now. The league, love the game. I don't love that aspect of the game. I don't understand why Gary Bettman and Colin Campbell can't police the game even stronger to stop that stuff. NFL's done it. Granted, there are still hits. There's still spearing. There is targeting. But it's a lot less now than it used to be. And the concussion numbers have gone down. It's got to happen in hockey, too.
Yeah, and then even the NFL changed the game a little bit with the kickoff. So, yeah, the NHL, maybe they need to consider some new ideas.
Agree with you. Hey, listen, we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. Reminder, we're here Mondays at 1 p.m. We're here Thursdays at 1 p.m. Want you to register so you'll be able to subscribe and get all the stuff we put up on the YouTube channel. Want you to join my Twitter All-Star team at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button there. And, of course, we want you to read everything I write on my website first thing every morning. John, what a great weekend we have ahead of us, especially NFL Sunday. We'll be back in here Monday. And by Monday, we may have some free agent signings to start to talk about in baseball, too.
Who's your pick tonight? Washington or Philly?
I think Philly's just rolling, and that kid quarterback's having a great season, but that's Philadelphia's defense and everything Philadelphia's got offensively.
Eagles.
Green and white. Have yourself a great sports weekend.
Same to you.
Thank you for being with us. Hope to talk to you Monday, our bonus podcast. This is Lee Hamilton for John Riley. Thanks for joining us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast app. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.